Fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I'm known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, y'all. Welcome to the horror show. You can just call me Fuego for short, and this is the show that I've been doing every terrifying Tuesday, Tower Tuesday to some, and every scarific Psy King Saturday for quite the while now, quickly approaching the 150 episodes here, and I am so supremely stoked to have you joining me here for, well, you're gonna probably be seeing this after we have got done covering Mad Monster Charlotte. That's gonna be a awesomely exciting weekend. There's so many cool celebrities, from obviously the man, the chin, the legend, Bruce Campbell, to Adrienne Barbeau. Sid Haig is there. We're gonna have lots of awesome coverage coming here on the horror show for you, all about that scarific weekend, courtesy of the Mad Monster Party peeps. But so, yeah, this is me trying to make a return to audience questions and using that as the basis going forward for a new episode of the show. It was something that I did early on in the days of all things Hail to Stephen King, and yeah, I gotta say, it's something that I would really like to get back to. It just kind of makes this more of a group kind of thing, and you know, just more of an awesome, you know, give and take. And I think it was always fun for the viewers when that was the case. And so I'm gonna start out right away with it's a double question from two different viewers that I've been sitting on for a while. One of which is my dude Mark Pearson. Shout out to my brother on the other side of the pond. You are absolutely one of my favorites in the Hail Ka-Tet, and a long, like years and years long supporter of not just Hail to Stephen King, but the horror show. And he asked me this quite a while back. It makes me wonder if Mark even remembers this, haha. But he basically said, if you could plant an idea in the King's head, what would it be? I'd like to see a full-on space travel story, maybe. And then a similar question was offered by a lady by the name of Christine Brooks, and she said, I actually love Dolores Claiborne, and I think it's because I went in with zero expectations and it surprised me. But I wanted to read Rose Madder and Gerald's Game in what I call King's Trilogy of the Abused, and here's where she gets to it. My question is, could you think of something that King hasn't written that you would like to see written, or tackle a genre that maybe you think he could go deeper in? And so it's really the back half of Christine's question here, because of the fact that as I was ruminating over this one, I was really thinking, I'm like, Psy King has pretty much touched on just about every subgenre of horror that you could think of, because, you know, he's done possession, he's done hauntings, he's done telekinetic, both children and adults, and pyrokinesis, and various, you know, forms of that, you know, that second sight and stuff of that nature. He's obviously done vampires before. He's done, you know, zombies, the, you know, dead coming back to life and stuff like Pet Sematary, and he's done like the whole rabid rage type thing like we saw in the Crazies with something like Cell. Obviously he's done all sorts of otherworldly ancient evil, whether, you know, I mean, all the different Lovecraftian aspects that he has incorporated in, with everything from, I mean, you know, even It has some of that, and there's vibes of that in various other works. He's done torture porn, which I guess is what Misery would be considered. I mean, he's hit pretty much, he's done werewolves, you know, so, you know, Silver Bullet, and, you know, obviously, you know, Cycle of the Werewolf being the you know, basis for that. I would love to see him do another werewolf tale. I think that would be cool. I would love to see him do more vampire work, you know, besides, you know, Popsy and, you know, Salem's Lot and things like that. But so if it really boiled down to me specifically, you know, Mark saying space travel, that is definitely one that I would love to see King delve into deeper. Not necessarily space travel specifically, but I liked how early on in King's career, he was doing things along the lines of, you know, I guess the jaunt was a little bit later, but stuff like I Am the Doorway, and even later, as much as he personally hates on it because he can barely remember writing it because he was so jacked up on substances and stuff like that, but, you know, I personally love the Tommyknockers. It's definitely a little bloated, but, you know, that was another thing implementing some sci-fi, and since I was a dude who grew up with science fiction, you know, before I started delving deeper into horror, you know, I was reading, you know, like the Bradbury's, you know, Martian Chronicles, and I was reading, you know, Heinlein stuff like Starship Troopers, and you know, it's been quite a while, you know, since I've read Herbert's original Dune, and I didn't delve as deeply into it and reading, you know, Children and Heretics and all the other stuff that came thereafter, and I certainly haven't read any of the Kevin J. Anderson, Brian Herbert stuff that came thereafter, because it's, I mean, there was such a vast world and so many different notes that they could expound upon. That is definitely with Denis' movie that he's working on right now and the cast that he's assembling, which is like mind-blowing. I love science fiction epics specifically, and King has done like, he's done fantasy, and I would love to see him do more within that realm, but with all of his fantasy, it was, with the exception of Eyes of the Dragon, I guess, it was really, I mean, more of a melding of fantasy with other genres, like even with the Dark Tower series, obviously, and that amazing, you know, Along the Path of the Beam saga and whatnot, he was still incorporating aspects of horror, a little bit of science fiction, you know, a little, and I don't know, I love the melting pot that he has pursued, and even the Talisman, you know, was something else of that nature, you know, but I would really love to see him go like a full-on, more sci-fi horror type vibe, because, I mean, literally for me, I Am the Doorway does come the closest to that sort of thing, but, I mean, damn, yeah, that would seriously be awesome, and I would just really love in a lot of ways to see Cy King do anything period level, whether it's reaching way, way further back, or way, way further forward. Some of my favorite bits in it are, you know, just those little segues where, you know, it just goes into ancient evil shit that went down in Derry, whether it's the stuff with the, you know, the lumberjacks killing each other, or whether it's the whole mobster massacre, all that different stuff that we didn't get to see in any previous incarnation of the film. I love when King goes period specific, but all too often, when we've seen like a full telling of that, it's been something like Hearts in Atlantis, you know, it's been something like, you know, the Body, which became Stand By Me, it's always been set within the confines of a period that he personally lived in, as opposed to really just, you know, going Old West evil, something insane, you know, whether it's, I don't know, I would love to see him do just full-on medieval times set in our world as opposed to in some other dimension, universe, whatever, and have something crazy transpiring, you know, that has, you know, forces of evil or, you know, whatever. And I don't know, I would love to see, you know, him jump supremely forward though too. I think that would be really badass, and that's where, you know, not just the not too distant future, we're talking like the way distant future. That's why The Jaunt was such a great story. So yeah, I'm definitely with you, Mark, in the fact that I would love to see Cy King just in general tackle more of a science fiction vibe. He's really, especially lately, been kind of hung up on the whole true crime vibe, honestly, and you know, I do really appreciate, you know, when he's done stuff in the, you know, 50s and 60s and 70s, but you know, that was his adolescence and his young adulthood, and I just got done reading Hearts in Suspension over the course of, well, I'm not quite done with it. I'm going to finish it over the course of, you know, the trip to Charlotte for Mad Monster. But what I've read thus far, after only having read the Cy King bit before, and obviously I've read Hearts in Atlantis, which is also included in that particular book, I gotta say it's super, super cool, because Hearts in Suspension also has essays from King's classmates and people he worked with on, you know, the University of Maine and Orono School paper. And I'm honestly thinking, since I've never read all of those other essays from his friends and his colleagues and his old roommates and people he collaborated with on, you know, these poetry collections and all kinds of different things. I really genuinely think that I need to film a review specifically of Hearts in Suspension because, once again, I'd only read King's like 50-something page essay in it, and, you know, that being period specific obviously too, but personally for me, I'm definitely with Mark in the fact that I would love to see King go really, really far forward, meld some sci-fi with horror, because, you know, aliens and, like, you know, The Thing from, you know, John Carpenter are some of my absolute favorite stuff, and that's actually where I can segue into, you know, the other half of what I would really love to see King do, is the fact that King is very good at writing villains with, like, legit personality, peeps. I mean, whether it's an Annie Wilkes, or whether it's a Bob Gray, or whether it's a Randall Flagg, or, I mean, these are very well-defined, intriguing villains that, you know, they are so multi-layered, and there is so much to them, there is so much going on, but for me, there is something supremely frightening about something that's even beyond the villain. Something that, the reason I love creature features, and I think Cecil would probably agree with me about this one because he's in the same camp, is the fact that there is no personality. It's really just an animalistic, instinctual kill kind of just urge, and I mean, that's what things of that nature are drawn to. It's just to feed, it's just to grow, it's just to consume, whatever it may be. And that's why, really, with the exception of, I guess From a Buick 8 kind of falls into that category, just like, you know, but that's really the only novel, I mean, that falls into that category, because even with Christine, you know, in the book Christine, you know, it's a possessed vehicle that has the spirit of the former owner that's really pulling the strings and everything. It's not like From a Buick 8 where it's like a full-on, you know, creaturous, like, almost like transportation, you know, like, I think Mile 81 even really gets to it better in the fact that it's like, yeah, it's a vehicle that just, like, consumes, you know, and just devours and stuff like that. When there's no cognitions and there's no thinking and feeling behind what's going down, I mean, that's the tail end of the spectrum for me. I don't deal well with where it's in the real world and there's no supernatural aspect and it's somebody genuinely just killing with no remorse and no feeling. That stuff genuinely frightens me because that is within the realm of our reality and within the real world. But as far as what captivates me and what I find equally frightening is something that's completely on the other end, and that is something like gray matter, you know, and once again, Mile 81 being another one that just really comes to mind, or, God, The Raft. I mean, just unthinking, consuming, creaturous type things are really something that I would love to see Cy King, you know, do a full novel, you know, kind of exploring and whatnot. I'm a sucker for the, you know, Chuck Russell, The Blob, that 80s remake of The Blob that Frank Darabont, you know, the Frank Darabont that, you know, went on to work on, you know, I mean, direct amazing, some of the best Cy King adaptations ever. For my money, the best Cy King adaptation ever, because it elevated the source material so much. And no, it's not Shawshank. As much as I love it, I feel like The Mist, as I talked about on a video quite a while ago, I still think The Mist is the best Stephen King adaptation because it took really, really solid, awesome, intriguing, fascinating source material and made it even better. But yeah, Frank Darabont co-wrote the script for the 80s Blob remake, which is my favorite horror movie. I don't know if I've said that here on Hail before. I know I've said it on regular episodes of The Horror Show before. I would love to see King do something of that nature, like do a full-on sequel to what happens in Gray Matter to the father who's swigging on that beer. And, you know, I just want to, I want King to write a full-on creature novel, whether it's like some mutated, thinkingless, whatever, or that is genuinely Mark and Christine, the type of story that I personally think would be the absolute most badass because of the fact that, you know, I don't necessarily consider vampires and even, I mean, werewolves are more on the creature side of things, but I mean, they're really just mutated people. It's when you can't revert back to a humanoid, you know, and really that state of regular appearance. When you are so far gone, you know, there's no turning back. You're off that deep end, you know, you're far from the shallows now. All that shizzle. But yeah, once you're there and there's no means of like taking you back, I mean, seriously, could you imagine King scripting something, you know, along the lines of Slither, or along the lines, I mean, Slither really, in a lot of ways, feels to me like gray matter area with Michael's character, man. Yeah, and it could be. So anyway, that is a rundown of what I personally think, and this is, you know, a slightly shorter, you know, review because of the fact, or just, you know, kind of discussion here for the sheer fact that, you know, getting ready for Charlotte and all that. But yeah, that's what I would personally love to see. I would love to see King go like full-on sci-fi. Honestly, we could combine all three of these suggestions into one idea. Let's see King do something like supremely in the past, like Outlander or whatever the hell that one was with Jim Caviezel. You know, let's see King do something way in the past or way in the future. Okay, let's get that sci-fi slant and let's get the creature slant. This is obviously me shoehorning in my love of the Blob and Cameron's Aliens and things like that. If I would love to see King play in that sort of playground, you know, or that sort of spaceship or whatever the hell it would be, for the sheer fact that so many of those films don't necessarily have the best character development, although I do think the remake of the Blob, you know, Chuck Russell worked on, oh boy, the Fourth Nightmare on Elm Street, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is the most underrated of the series. Yes, Dream Warriors is the best. The first one is the scariest in my opinion. 2 is totally underrated as well. The most underrated for me are 2 and 4, but I mean 4 has my favorite kill and I think it's very well directed and everything, and that was where Freddy was on the verge of being campy. But yeah, Chuck and Darabont did a great job collaborating on that version of the Blob, and obviously Cameron's Aliens goes without saying. So I would love to see King do something along the lines of that, or, you know, Carpenter's remake of The Thing, because he would really have well-defined, intriguing characters that are still dealing with something so crazy and messed up. And I mean, God, if y'all haven't seen the Creepshow 2 installment of The Raft, that's like, seriously, for King Creatures, The Raft and what ends up happening to the kid's dad in Gray Matter are, for me, the two awesomest bits of creatureness that King has put together. And My Lady 1 is really close, and I'm supremely stoked that that is finally being made into a film as well, because you guys know everything King related is being turned into something at this particular point. But so that is my thoughts on what I would like to see. I want sci-fi, I want creatures, I want period pieces, because for me, King has done just about everything under the sun, you know, whether it's serial killers, torture porn, vampires, werewolves, supernatural, ghosts, possessions, hauntings. All King has really, he's hit just about, I guess he hasn't done stuff about mummies. I was never too big into mummies, although I do really like that Tales from the Crypt episode where, yeah, the girl mummifies the guys at the end and all that other stuff. And I mean, King could do something rad with, you know, using the hook up the nose for the, you know, taking the brains out and everything. But yeah, I think even mummies are pretty much like just a type of a zombie, right? So yeah, I think King has really hit all of the major horror tent poles, and so it really, just like Christine said in the second half of her question here, it does boil down to where I would like to see King take more attention and work on something bigger. I want something way in the past or way in the future, and I want it to be like sci-fi-ish and creature-ish. That would be dope status. But what did I neglect? What did I forget? I'm just a Psy-King enthusiast. I'm not an expert. I have never classified myself as such. Even though I've read every single bit of his published work, I'm just a fan and a supporter, just like all of you. So, what would you like to see, you know? Do you want more real-life stuff, you know, that has no supernatural aspect whatsoever? Because King has done great in that realm as well. You know, I mean, the Gerald's Game exists in that realm. And that's an absolutely amazing bit. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you have a question for me that you would like to see yours truly, Fuego, expand upon and turn into an episode of Hail to Stephen King. If we do continue with the 2-episode-a-week format, which Cecil and I are still debating because of the fact that season 6, which is starting in March, of the horror show, we have an awesome new animated bit that's going to be debuting, so we're going to have a new intro for the show. You're still going to hear my King music and everything that I composed the very minimalistic, you know, ha 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 at the beginning. Yeah, I wrote that. And I played it. Hey, you can tell it's not as grandiose as like you know, Game of Thrones or anything of that nature, but still, you know, I thought it was a catchy melody, and I dig it. So you'll still see that, but we have some badass new animated artwork that producer Dave is working on, and we are going to be scaling back coverage a little bit just to kind of test the YouTube algorithms to see if we're overwhelming y'all with content by doing 2, sometimes 3 episodes a day. But let me know what you think I should do as far as a Hail to Stephen King episode with a question below. It is greatly appreciated. And also, what would you like to see King tackle? You know, what is your personal taste? What do you think he should write more about? What do you think would be a cool idea maybe that just grazed over my mind that I did not address in this video? So, I have been Jaime in Fuego! That is right, you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, yes, Infuegotainment. If you search Infuegotainment on YouTube, you will come across my personal channel where I review things that aren't horror related. We're talking drama and comedy and things like that. I have recorded reviews of all of the Oscar-nominated Best Picture stuff, and I guess by the time you see this, the Oscars will have already passed, so my #1 was Green Book, my #2 is Black Klansman, and then, you know, various others. If you want to see my full countdown on all of my reviews of that stuff, that's on the Infuegotainment, Jaime Infuego YouTube channel, my personal one. And yeah, I also have reviews going up every month leading up to episode 9 of Star Wars stuff. So I'm going to be even doing like the Clone Wars animated film and the Ewok spin-offs and, you know, Solo and Rogue One as well. So it's going to be really fun. I'll also have all the episodic stuff and maybe even some surprise reviews of stuff that's no longer canon and now legends like Shadows of the Empire and, you know, various other things. So very much looking forward to that, but really more so than anything else, what you need to do is like, share, and subscribe here on The Horror Show if you have not done that before. Hit the bell that you see on the little YouTube page here where you're watching me talking into a camera, talking to the interwebs. That way you get all of the notifications anytime we do a film review, a trailer reaction, all the upcoming convention coverage that you're going to see from Mad Monster. So hopefully I get to talk to Adrienne Barbeau. She's like, talking to Dee Wallace a few years ago at Mad Monster was like a big boon for me, and I'm really hoping I get yes, Ms. Barbeau as well. That would be wonderful. But yeah, if you want all of the notifications and just a little reminder when we put up all of this new content, that's how you're gonna get it showing up on your little YouTubies here. And yes, it is supremely appreciated, peeps. And I guess I will finish it up there and say until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more. Hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. I am hopeful that it is sooner rather than later that we get to reconnect. Do not forget that there is the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group where we have about 400 members and we are a very closely knit Ka-Tet, and I give a shout out to all of the members there. And also, yes, the Journals of Eleanor Druce, which was not technically written by King, but yes, ties in with the anniversary of Kingdom Hospital based on the Lars von Trier series that I'm going to be covering next month in March. That is our book of the month, so if you get the chance, download the audiobook or, you know, read the novel proper if you get the opportunity, and look forward to that palaver next month. So yes, I look forward to that. Say thank you, and until we get to reconnect, y'all, remember, stay scared and read Stephen King. Especially the short stories, because, I mean, stuff like Night Shift is where you really see King spreading his wings and covering a lot of different things.